Here's a reflection from Ivanka Trump. Real estate is my life. It is my day job, if you will, but it consumes my nights and weekends, too. There are a lot of people interested in getting involved with real estate nowadays, yet so few know what it actually takes to become a licensed agent. You may have heard that people actually go to school or take coursework in order to become a real estate agent. While it is true that a minimum number of hours in real estate coursework is required, this is not the same as having to go to a university or having to get a degree. The coursework is itself simply a prerequisite required before one is able to take the actual exam for getting a real estate license. The number of hours of coursework deemed necessary depends on the state in which you apply for a license. Some states might require as little as 20 hours, while others may require more than 100 hours. Colorado, for example, requires a whopping 162 hours of coursework. Along with the long hours studying the books, you also need to pass an extensive background check that includes getting your fingerprints taken. Budding real estate agents usually complete their coursework in person under the tutelage of a licensed broker. Some real estate agencies also have programs in which they pay part or even all of tuition costs in exchange for you agreeing to work for them when you get your license. But just be sure to read the fine print, because the last thing you want is to be obligated to a company that is not a good fit for you. The actual learning environment for coursework can vary greatly. Some course programs are done in person, while others could be done online. It's up to you to decide which learning environment would be best for you. Some find it much more informative to sit through in-person lectures, while others are fine with simply reading curriculum and doing online tests. Availability, of course, is also a determining factor in this, with those that have a booked schedule obviously going for online classes rather than committing to in-person course loads. As for the actual coursework itself, it's recommended that one try and keep up with their studies on a daily basis, rather than try and cram it all in at the last possible moment. Back in our school days, many of us might have picked up the habit of cramming for tests the day before we take an exam. But even if this method occasionally works out for us, it's really not a sustainable model. And it certainly won't do you any favors when it comes to getting your real estate license. It's always preferable to learn gradually than attempt a marathon study session right before the exam. You may also want to consider forming a study group with others taking the same coursework. That way the group can bounce ideas off of each other and help make sure that no aspect of the material is being neglected. In these study sessions, sample test questions and study guides are often useful in making sure that the material is being properly understood. Most of the subjects covered in the curriculum is simply an exercise of remembering key facts. As long as you develop good study habits to commit these items to memory, you should be fine. But there is one area in which you might need a little more than a good memory, and that's this section of the exam to do with math. If you are anything like me, math might not be your strong suit. Mathematics is just one of those fields in which people seem to either have a knack for it, or they don't. But before you begin to freak out, relax. The math portion of a real estate exam is a little challenging, but as long as you can handle high school level pre-algebra, you will do just fine. The main areas that you will need to know as it applies to practical real estate knowledge pertains to being competent with your use of decimals, fractions, and percentages, measurement conversions, and some simple formulas. If you have a solid footing in basic business math, this portion of the test should not be a problem at all. Use of your phone's calculator app, or even a good old-fashioned hand calculator, could be of use as well. With all of these basics covered, you are ready to take the exam itself. The exam location is usually held at an official testing site designated by the state. There will most likely be an exam fee which could cost as much as $60. The exam will consist of primarily multiple choice. The passing score depends on the state handling the testing, with some requiring a minimum of 60%, and others requiring a score as high as 75%. Upon passing the exam, you still don't technically have your real estate license, but a passing score paves the way to get it. In order to move forward, you then need to take a copy of your official results and submit them with an official license application, along with any subsequent application fees. You will also have to follow any applicable guidelines in regard to background and credit checks. After doing all of this, all that's left is to wait for a response. The waiting period usually takes a couple of weeks. Now, with your shiny new license in hand, you are ready to roll, right? Well, not necessarily, because state requirements often need newly licensed agents to sign on with a qualified broker for a couple of years before they break out on their own. This then leads you to the most pivotal crossroads of your early real estate career. You've passed your tests, you've got your license. Now, what brokerage company are you going to work for? Which company will have you come on board? Fortunately enough, for newly licensed agents, the real estate industry is always looking for new blood. It's not so much that there is a high turnover rate, although a good portion of newbies do drop out, but more due to the fact that real estate companies are always trying to expand and consolidate more territory. Think of it like an army at war eager to get new recruits. Yes, the real estate field is somewhat analogous to a battlefield, with each company trying to get as many agents as possible in as many theaters of war as possible. So, that's good news for anyone newly licensed real estate professionals. Because as long as you have your license, a fresh suit, and an agreeable personality, you shouldn't have any problem getting your foot in the door. Now let's say you get your license in one state, and then wish to pick up shop and move to another. That's fine, but you need to consider the reciprocity rules of that state in which you wish to practice. What are reciprocity rules? Reciprocity rules consist of an agreement between states which dictate how someone who received a real estate license in one state can then go on to get their license in another state. Depending on the rules, many of the pre-license prerequisites can be leapfrogged over, allowing for a much quicker route to obtaining a license in that state than it otherwise would have been. As you can imagine, just how easy or difficult the process will be largely depends on the reciprocity rules of the state in question. Having that said, here is a full listing of the reciprocity rules of each state. Reciprocity rules by state. Rules may vary from state to state, and some have stiffer requirements than others. Here is a general overview of what to expect. Alabama. The state of Alabama engages in full reciprocity with all states, with the only requirement being that you've had your license in the previous state for at least 1 year. This is a pretty good trade-off. But the state of Alabama does require applicants to take 6 hours worth of coursework in Alabama-based real estate law, in addition to receiving at least a passing score on the state exam. Alaska. Full reciprocity is available in Alaska for those who have had their current license for over a year and who have passed Alaska's official state exam. Alaska is wide open to investors. Arizona. The state of Arizona does not currently engage in reciprocity with any other states. As such, the state requires all applicants to take the full load of coursework as a prerequisite prior to taking the state's exam for a real estate license. This can be quite a heavy load for outside investors wishing to do business in this state. Arkansas. The state of Arkansas does have some reciprocity, but it is not universal. As stands right now, Arkansas has partial reciprocity with 16 states, and they are Alabama, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Washington, and West Virginia. California. As of this writing, the state of California does not currently allow for any reciprocity agreements. Having that said, in order to make real estate investments in California, an investor doesn't have to get a license in California or even be a resident. But they are indeed required to take all state-mandated coursework and will need to pass California's official state exam. Colorado. Colorado is another state that engages in full reciprocity. In Colorado, all you have to do is hold your current real estate license for over a year, and then pass Colorado's state exam, and then you are good to go. Connecticut. The state of Connecticut currently holds reciprocity with 13 other states, and they are Alabama, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Nebraska, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, and Rhode Island. Delaware. Delaware is another state that maintains full reciprocity with every other state. As long as you have finished the minimum number of coursework in your state, you can go ahead and take Delaware's state exam for licensing. Florida. Florida is another state which has partial reciprocity, which is good in 8 different states. And they are Alabama, Arkansas, Connecticut, Georgia, Illinois, Mississippi, Nebraska, and Rhode Island. Georgia. The state of Georgia engages in full reciprocity with all states. Georgia, however, does require applicants from other states to complete a commission-approved 25-hour post-license course during their very first year of carrying a license. Hawaii. Hawaii does not currently have any reciprocity with any other outside states. Hawaii required coursework must be completed, and the real estate agent must pass Hawaii's official state exam. Idaho. Idaho is another state that lacks any reciprocity agreements, but if your license is active, you can get the national portion of the exam waived for you. Illinois. The state of Illinois currently conducts reciprocity with 8 other states, and they are Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, and Wisconsin. Indiana. Indiana does not currently have any license reciprocity agreements, but there are some instances in which requirements can be waived for you if the previous state in which you are licensed has requirements which are substantially similar to Indiana's. Iowa. The state of Iowa has reciprocity with 7 states, and they are Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Mississippi, and North Dakota. Kansas. Kansas does not currently have reciprocity with any other state, but certain aspects of the licensing process can be waived if the state commission concludes that the current license holder already meets the necessary requirements. Kentucky. The state of Kentucky has reciprocity with every state. All that's required is passing Kentucky's official state exam. Louisiana. The state of Louisiana currently holds reciprocity with 9 other states, and they are Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. Maine. Maine has reciprocity with all other states. The only requirement is to pass the state-sanctioned exam. Maryland. The state of Maryland currently has reciprocity with just 2 other states, Pennsylvania and Oklahoma. Massachusetts. Massachusetts conducts full reciprocity with no strings attached in the following states: Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Tennessee, and West Virginia. For the states of Oklahoma and New York, reciprocity is granted only if the applicant has had their license for at least 2 years. And as it pertains to the state of Maine, Massachusetts reciprocity rules requires the applicant to have held their license for 3 full years. Michigan. The state of Michigan does not currently have any reciprocity with other states. Minnesota. Minnesota currently has reciprocity with 7 other states, and they are Colorado, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. Mississippi. The state of Mississippi does not have any official agreements with other states, but it is still possible to get one simply by applying and providing adequate references from 3 different real estate owners from the applicant's respective state of residence. Missouri. The state of Missouri does indeed supply full reciprocity with every state of the Union, but there is one caveat that comes along with it. Because Missouri requires all applicants to finish up a total of 24 hours in a Missouri real estate practice course before taking the state's exam. Nebraska. Nebraska does not currently have any official reciprocity arrangements with any other state, but it does have something called license by recognition. This allows those wanting to transfer their practice from another state to be able to receive an equivalent license for Nebraska as long as the applicant is deemed to be in good standing. Nevada. Nevada currently has what is termed salesperson and broker license reciprocity arrangements with 10 states, and they are Arizona, Colorado, Delaware, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Minnesota, Texas, Utah, and West Virginia. It also has what is known as simply broker license reciprocity arrangements with 15 states, and host states are California, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Florida, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Virginia. New Hampshire. New Hampshire currently has reciprocity with 4 states, and they are Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, and Georgia. The only thing required of those already carrying a license in the aforementioned states is to complete the standard state examination for New Hampshire. New Jersey. The state of New Jersey does not currently have any reciprocity agreements. New Mexico. New Mexico currently has reciprocity agreements with just 3 different states, and they are Massachusetts, Louisiana, and Georgia. New York. New York had reciprocity with 9 states, and they are Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. North Carolina. North Carolina operates under conditional license reciprocity arrangements, in which those from other states with a current real estate license that they've had for at least 3 years may qualify for either a provisional or full license. This means that applicants can either waive the exam and be granted a provisional license, or simply waive North Carolina's pre-licensing coursework and take the state exam to receive a full license. North Dakota. North Dakota currently has reciprocity with Georgia, Iowa, and Minnesota. Ohio. The state of Ohio has reciprocity with 8 states, and they are Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Mississippi, Nebraska, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Oklahoma. In the state of Oklahoma, reciprocity is referred to as non-residency agreements and are currently in full force with 9 different states. And they are Alabama, Arkansas, Iowa, Louisiana, Maryland, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and West Virginia. In order to qualify, applicants from these states need to be in good standing. They also need to undergo 3 hours of coursework in Oklahoma before taking the state's examination. Oregon. Oregon currently had reciprocity with 5 states, and they are Alabama, Alberta, Georgia, Nebraska, and South Dakota. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has reciprocity arrangements with 6 states: Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, and New York. Rhode Island. Rhode Island so far has reciprocity arrangements with just 2 states, Connecticut and Massachusetts. South Carolina. The only state that South Carolina currently has a reciprocity agreement with is Georgia. South Dakota. The state of South Dakota has reciprocity with all states. The only requirement is for applicants to pass South Dakota's state examination. Tennessee. Tennessee currently has no reciprocity with any other state. Texas. The state of Texas does not engage in reciprocity agreements. Utah. Utah engages in reciprocity agreements with the states of Georgia and Mississippi, as well as the Canadian province of Alberta. Vermont. Vermont does not have any reciprocity with any other state. Virginia. Virginia conducts reciprocity with all other states. Applicants just need to have a current license in their current state and be able to pass Virginia's state exam. Washington. Washington carries out reciprocity with all states. Applicants must have had their license with their current state for at least 6 months and will have to pass Washington's state exam. West Virginia. West Virginia is another state that conducts reciprocity with all other states. All you have to do is take West Virginia's state-sanctioned exam. Wisconsin. Wisconsin only has reciprocity with 2 states, Illinois and Indiana. Wyoming. Wyoming does not currently engage in reciprocity with any other state. As you can see, depending on which one of the 50 states you wish to transfer your real estate expertise into, some very specific reciprocity and mutual recognition rules might apply. The real key to keep in mind in all this is that even if a state does not have a reciprocity agreement with yours, there usually are ways to get around it. No matter what direction you wish to take, once you have your real estate license in hand, a wide variety of opportunities awaits.